What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Kind of Funny Gamescast. As always, I'm Tim Gettys, joined by one of the coolest dudes in video games, Greg Miller.
Hachi Machi, cheese and crackers are feet.
I get it, Greg.
What the fuck did you say? What are you doing? What's even happening? Oh my God. It is 2 p.m. on a Thursday, I think.
I'm double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
Is that a French press?
It is a French press. I wanted more coffee.
All right.
Got a problem with that, Imran? I'll come through this fucking screen.
We also have the former informer, Imran Khan.
Howdy.
And the new face of video games, blessing Adeoye Jr.
It's me. Am I cut off at the top? I'm trying to manage my my webcam. I'm trying to make sure I don't look like my forehead's missing, you know?
You're trying to manage expectations right now, just like every video game developer and publisher in the freaking world.
Oh yeah, man. I'm trying to make sure that, this is next gen, but this isn't like next gen.
You'll love to see it. This is the Kind of Funny Gamescast each and every week right here on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. We get together, talk about video games, all the things that we love about them. You can watch it live if you are a patreon.com/kindoffunnygames supporter, or you can watch it later for free on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, or you can listen to it on your favorite podcast service. Just search for Kinda Funny Games Cast. But going back to that Patreon thing, a lot of cool perks there. Cool perks like being a Patreon producer, getting the show ad-free. Those producers include Muhammad, Al Tribesman, James Hastings, Sancho West Gaming, Cody Banks, Trent Barry, Joseph O. Yusuf, Scott Radloff, and Julian, the gluten-free gamer. Now, guys, I can see it on all of your faces right now. You're all wondering, I wonder if Julian, the gluten-free gamer, has an amazing story that needs to be read live right now. And the answer for all of you is yes.
Whoa.
Last week, we talked about hype game launches that we remember. And Julian wrote in a banger, okay? It's a journey. I need you all to strap in right now. I need you all to stand up.
Oh God, they're gonna see my gray sweatpants.
And then sit down, because I need to make sure that you're sitting down for this, okay?
Oh, I see what he's doing.
Oh, that was a bit.
You all took way longer to stand up than I expected.
It's a lot of work. I gotta make sure, I had to check I was wearing pants.
He was so
it was a
comfortable
disbelief first. It was like, do we really have to stand up?
I love it. I love it all. So, Julian, the gluten-free gamer, writes in and says, "My midnight launch story. I promise it's worth it. Sorry, I wasn't watching live, but wanted to get in my midnight launch story for Gears of War 2 because it was a shit show. 16 years old, my best friend's mom drives us to our New Jersey GameStop at 8 p.m. 3 of us wait in line, probably 100 people there, as my friend's mom, like a champ, listens to audiobooks in her van the entire time from the parking lot, so we had a ride home. The gluten-free gamer, unbeknownst to him, had celiac disease. I was not yet gluten-free.
Oh,
I happened
Origin stories.
to have a pizza that night.
Oh,
Stomach
no,
begins
Julian.
to rumble at 12:30 as the line begins to move. In a panic, I say, give me 1 second. I have to make a phone call. The only people I would call are with me, but they believed it. No stores are open on a Tuesday morning, 12:30 a.m. In desperation, the following events transpire.
I don't like where this is going, bless.
I found a bank, ran around to the back, and shit in the employee parking lot behind the bank. I couldn't hold it in. It's definitely a first for me.
Not for
I then
Greg.
do what I do to clean myself up, and then I take a dead sprint back to where I see my friends near the door. We get in. They told us we weren't 17 yet, and even though we pre-ordered the game, paid in full, we needed a parent at pickup. Our one friend was in luck. His mom came in, and those fuckers wouldn't let me get the game because she wasn't my mom.
Boom.
Wow.
They gave me a card for a gold Lancer skin and said, come back tomorrow.
Unfortunate,
The story
man.
could end there.
Oh,
Oh no.
But my friends, it doesn't. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. My friend's mom drops us off at our houses. I ponder, and then I put my shoes back on.
Oh no.
I grab a beach bucket and pail from the basement. And at 2 a.m. on a school night, I jog a town over back to this GameStop. I shovel up my aforementioned
No.
shit with a children's beach shovel, and I move it to the back door of the GameStop. You'll love to see it.
Wow. Because I
That
thought
took turns.
the villain or whatever was gonna play into he didn't want to leave his shit at the bank, so he's just gonna clean it up. But when he said I went back a town over to the GameStop, that's when I was like, uh-oh.
Why couldn't he just take a new shit?
Can you shit on demand? Could you shit right now?
I feel like
I mean,
2
eat some
hours
bread.
after you already like
Yeah, exactly. Evacuating your bowels.
mm,
See, I rolled the dice this morning where I had to take a poop last night while I was playing Predator, which was off schedule. And so then this morning I woke up and didn't have to poop. And so then it was a thing of like, well, this throws the whole day off. Do I need to be worried? I had to make a run to do some things in Oakland. I was like, do I have to worry about pooping now when I'm in Oakland?
I feel like
Long story short, I didn't.
if you know you're about to take a jog to a different town and you know you're going to need to shit in that town, you can prepare in a way that makes it so you don't have to take it. Like,
I wish I had
go
that ability.
find old shit.
Imran, here's the thing though. Like we're talking about at this point, less than 17-year-old boy. He doesn't understand his body. You know what I mean? He hasn't. This is
He doesn't even
Julian.
know he doesn't know he's got a
part of
gluten
puberty.
allergy.
Yeah.
Nowadays, he would just eat a breadstick and jog over there and be all set, or take that place out. You know what I mean? But then he was just a young poop terrorist in the making. He didn't understand.
I'm
Now
on Imran's side here.
imagine being the bank tellers and looking at the security footage. First off, you see this kid shit outside. Then you see him come back and put it into a beach bucket and walk away.
Oh my God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Kind of Funny Gamescast. So we're going to get right into it. Gentlemen, it's been a while since I've talked to you, at least a week. What have you been playing? Expected more of an immediate answer there.
Well,
but, you know.
You don't understand. Here's the thing, Tim. You're podcasting like we're all in the room and we can read each other's cues. And when you're here, when we're all sanctioned in quarantine, you got to go, what are you playing? Blessing. What have you been playing?
Gotcha.
You got to throw the ball around.
Greg Miller, I
What?
need you to stand up.
42.
Why do we revere the big D? Andy?
Fuck you guys. I'll tell you what I've been playing. I've been playing a lot of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, man. This game, the reveal of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, it got me in a mood. That mood immediately led to Spotify playlists that I've always had on my phone. It's like I have the playlist downloaded, right? But I was like, I'm going to go all in. I'm listening, and I listened to every single song from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 all the way through American Wasteland. That's more commitment than anybody I know has ever given to the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise. Okay. And
which game would you say has the best soundtrack?
Best soundtrack is a very, very, very hard thing to answer, but I think
Is it though? Because is the answer not 3?
The answer is 3. Bless. You're right. But the thing is, when you're talking best, I think 4 is actually the best. Pound for pound, amount of high quality songs. 4 is insane. Insane. They have too many high level classics because 4 is when they started making money. You know what I mean? It wasn't just the underground, well, before Thug, but like, you know, underground music that was cheap to license out. And there's exceptions to those rules for sure, obviously, in Tony Hawk 1 and 2 and 3. But it was like 4 is really with they got AC/DC. It's like they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. You know what I mean?
I can hear that.
Yeah. But I've had a great time doing all that. But then I was like, I want to go back and play these games. Because, okay, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, I could not be more excited. They look amazing. Vicarious Visions knocked it out of the park with the Crash Bandicoot remakes. I would not put this game in better hands than this. But we've seen Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 now on every generation since they've come out. They originally came out on the PS1 generation as separate games. Then when we got to the next gen, Xbox, GameCube, PS2, on Xbox, they came out with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X, which was just 1 and 2 together. Mm-hmm. Then PS3 360, they put out Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD that was a weird remix of 1 and 2. It was like 50-50 kind of, where, well, not like the grind though. You know what I'm talking about, guys? You know what I'm talking about? No, it was like half Tony Hawk 1.
Grind.
There we go. Yeah. Half Tony Hawk 2.
Skating stuff.
And the problem that game I think gets shit on more than it deserves, but it didn't feel right. And everyone can admit that. It was just like, it was cool, but like it didn't feel like Tony Hawk should. And then now we're getting this one, and it's like, from what I've seen, from what I'm hearing, speaking the right language, man. It's gonna feel right. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, how it should be.
They definitely made a point to say it's Neversoft's old handling code. Like it's the same. It should feel exactly the same as the old games because it's the exact same code.
And I'm all about that, man. But I tried going back and I was like, I want to play some of these older games to know what that code feels like. And it's too difficult to be able to properly do this because it's
I was gonna say, how are you playing
own
it?
these games. Like I own physical copies of all of them that have them. The HD is only digital, but I had that on PS3. So I had my PS3 and I'm like, that's cool. But my PS3, the version I have now, was not backwards compatible. So I can't play my stupid ass Tony Hawk 1 and 2 discs on PS1 because my launch PS3 died. And I'm like, I hate that this is all so complicated. I'm like, I'm going to lean over to the Xbox side of things. They have excellent backwards compatibility. It can play Xbox games. I own Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X on the original Xbox. I'll be able to just pop it in and play. Not the case, my friends. Not the case. Did you know that not every disc is compatible with backwards compatibility?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's public knowledge.
Imran's like, yeah, of course.
A quick Google shows that, but like for some reason I felt like we were past that. Where it's just like, no, fuck it, it works now. It doesn't.
Like when you say every disc, are you saying that like is it not a backwards compatible game, or is it just the disc doesn't work for backwards compatibility?
I mean, both.
Oh, okay.
If the disc doesn't work, then it wouldn't be downloadable. But I knew it too. But it was just a bummer. You know, then I look at this long list of like backwards compatible games. No Tony Hawk game on the list.
Licensing as hell.
Yeah. So long story short, I emulated a lot in the last couple of days.
So to the point here, I've broken a lot of DRM law.
But I own the games, to be very clear. Like I literally own physically like all of these Tony Hawk games, including Tony Hawk 2X on the Xbox. That's as obscure as you freaking get.
You can own the gun, but you just can't throw the bullets everywhere. All right, Tim?
Gotcha. Yeah. And I've been having a great time. And it's like, I love the idea that these games are going to be classic and have the same momentum and feel of the originals, but with the added elements that 3 and 4, you know, kind of created, where they added the revert, they added the spine transfers and balancing out in the air. That's what 1 and 2 are totally missing. Like 1 and 2 are classics, but they're not playable today. And I mean playable in the way of like they're not classics anymore. Like you play them and you're like,
oh, okay.
Ooh, these don't hold up as much. Whereas you could play 3 or 4 and you're still like, oh my God, this is butter. And I'm expecting, based on this gameplay that we've seen, that the 1 and 2 remakes are going to play like 3 and 4. And this is a really exciting time for Tim Gettys.
It's about time.
It is about time. I haven't had anything to look forward to in years, you know?
Do you plan to hit up the Thug games?
Oh yeah. No, I'm trying to make my way through all of them right now.
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm right now. I'm midway through 2, going through all of it, and I'm having a good time. But yeah, I'm itching to get to 3 because I need that reason.
Yeah. No, yeah. 3 is where 3 obviously is the one that kind of changed things, right? Like from the get go, Tony Hawk was always great, but like 3 is where like when you add that was the revert, right? That's when they added
2 was manual, and I would argue 2 was the one that changed the game. Like 2 really 1 was a neat idea. 2 was like, oh fuck, this is.
I guess 2 and 3 both kind of changed the games and changed the game in their own ways, but like yeah, dude, having the manual plus the revert and having 3 that like. I feel like it has such a great selection of levels. Like I can name probably most of those levels off the top, right? From Foundry, Canada, LA, airport, the Rio, like the ship. Like there's such good levels in 3.
Tokyo.
That was Tokyo in 3?
Oh yeah.
Why don't I remember it?
It was after the cruise ship.
Wait, I thought the cruise ship was the last level. Am I crazy?
No.
Was it a
special last level?
I think wasn't cruise ship last level, and then there was 3 bonus levels.
That might have been.
They also included the remakes of Warehouse, Area 51.
Remake Tony Hawk 3. That's what I'm saying.
Well, here's my thing: the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater H. To end the Tony Hawk talk real quick. Shut the fuck up, Greg Miller. You never played a skate game in your life.
I did play the skate games, motherfucker.
Skate 3 was excellent.
Yeah, but with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, it was the weird mix of 1 and 2, and then for DLC they did the 3-pack, which added the revert finally, and then it added LA, airport, and Canada.
Airport is so good.
Yeah,
like it's just so good.
And based on Vicarious Vision's track record and kind of Activision as a whole when it comes to these remakes, like Beanox did Crash Team Racing, but they put so much love and care into the DLC of that. And I feel like a lot of this is kind of like step by step where it went from Insane Trilogy, Spiral Trilogy, Crash Team Racing. Now we're getting Tony Hawk. I imagine we are either going to get Tony Hawk 3 and 4 in the future or DLC. And I'd almost rather DLC.
Yeah, like I could see the DLC packs being like Tony Hawk +3 or something like that. Like we're adding 3, and then like later on they're making it 1 + 2 + 3 + 4. Like I can see them going that route. Like the more I've been thinking about it,
I like the idea that logo just getting bigger and bigger. Just add
yeah, it is add.
Imran, what have you been playing?
So I finished Dishonored 2, which was a good game. I think a lot of that game, like everyone says, oh, this game is underrated, which it is. But there's two very standout levels, which are one is the Clockwork Mansion, which is a very cool like level where things shift around as you pull levers and stuff like that. And the other is a crack in the slab. And I want to talk about this level because this has the exact. You remember Cause and Effect from Titanfall 2? That level where it's like press R2 to change time.
To time travel.
Time travel, yeah. This has that exact same mechanic as in a more open thing. And it's insane to me because those two games are 2 weeks apart. And everyone gives Titanfall all the credit for this thing, and no one ever talks about Dishonored 2 having it.
Yeah, I agree. And Dishonored 2, I feel like used it in more of an in-depth way, right? Because it is more open. It is an immersive sim. You are like having to problem solve and actually like traverse this whole level while trying to figure out how you're going to stealth your way through this through 2 different times. Titanfall 2, like it was very impressive and very awesome in Titanfall 2 also. But yeah, in Titanfall 2, it felt way more of a straightforward like set piece thing of like, oh yeah, like you shoot 2 people in previous time and then you immediately flash forward to current times and you see their dead bodies on the floor, which is like a cool effect. But Dishonored 2, I feel like doesn't get enough credit for how well it does it also.
Yeah, Dishonored 2 has this like one where you see this note saying these people are here to fix the windows. It has to be tonight or it won't be for months. So I see those guys there fixing the windows. I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like knock them out. I knock them out, then I fast forward back in time, and the window is just not fixed, and I can go through it and go to an entirely new area. It's stuff like that that's super cool. It's shocking to me no one ever talks about Dishonored 2. That said, that game gets kind of boring in spots, and I don't think it ends super great, but I think it was fun. I like Dishonored 1 a little bit better, but I think Dishonored 2 is fine. I decided that I'm going to give up on Streets of Rage's Platinum.
What?
Oh
no,
my!
Imran. I've seen you playing it nonstop. No,
because it's so difficult.
How many hours are you in now?
I probably put like 45 hours ish in there.
Oh my god!
But like hard S ranks, getting S ranks in that game in general is arcane. You have to hit a certain point threshold, and it's not always super clear of how you do it. So like it's get combos and don't lose any health really. And sometimes it's one of those things of stuff that you think is cool as you're playing the game becomes maddening when you're trying to perfect the game.
I hate that. I hate when a trophy list is like that.
Yeah. So like there's a part in the game where like you're in a Turkish bath and like you and the enemy slip a little as you're like going through like up and down, and that's a fun little thing twist on the game or element level design of it. But when you're trying to like barely hit an enemy to get a combo going and it slipped a little bit too far and then jabs you in the face and breaks your combo, that's so fucking annoying. And it's like, literally I was at the point where I was screaming at the game and I realized I'm going to have to just stop or I'm going to hate this thing that I've really liked. I'm going to leave this game with negative feelings even though I've loved most of it up until now. So it's one of those things. This has happened to me before with Platinums of when I try to Platinum a game, I realize all the things that break it open. And sometimes it's like it's finding cool things, and sometimes it's like, oh, this is the most annoying thing in the game I've seen, and it's making me dislike this thing that I enjoyed enough to get this far.
Damn, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
You hate to see it.
Digging up your own shit,
dumping it on GameStop's door.
I can't believe it. That's crazy.
No, yeah, that's the thing is like, so on PS I Love You this week, a guy wrote in for his profile and was like, I want to get a platinum trophy. I want to get my first platinum trophy. What should it be? Or no, for his 50th, right? And it was like, what should it be? And so we submitted or came back with Infamous First Light because we'd been talking about that earlier and how I had never platinumed it. And I think you had never played it, Bless, or you had never platinumed it? I forget which it was.
I never platinumed it. Yeah, no, I had like 12 trophies in it.
And so it was that idea of like, all right, you know what? We're gonna, because he was like, I'm a single dad, or I'm a dad, and I have a job, so I don't have that much time, I don't have that much money, or money, blah blah blah. We're like, all right, do this. It'll be a fun one. And it's one that I never platinumed because, and I love Infamous and I love Sucker Punch, but I remember the challenge rooms in it being like, I'm not really enjoying this, and I bounced, and I think I got distracted by something else, yada yada yada. So I re-downloaded it to do it along with the community or whatever and started playing it. And I went and did the challenges I have to do in the open world or whatever. I still have a few, I guess, to work on or whatever, because there's a ton of challenges. You have to do them all. And then I went into the stupid rooms again. I was like, oh, man, no, I fucking hate this. Shit, why did I say this on a podcast? I fucking hate this.
I had the exact same experience yesterday when I played where, like, I remember enjoying the challenge rooms. And I was talking about PS I Love You. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember loving those. Yeah. And I think it was just one of those things where I enjoyed it because I didn't try. Like, I enjoyed those challenge rooms because I wasn't going for a score. I was just going in to just fuck around. And so, yeah, when I opened it up yesterday, like, I completed my open world challenges and I was like, oh, this is a blast. And granted, it only took me like 20 to 30 minutes because I had already cleaned up the open world. Yeah. But yeah, then I went into the challenge rooms and I started doing the challenges and I was like, all right, I got to get 250,000 points. Yeah. And then I started and I died at like 30,000 and I was like, huh. And I tried again, and then like at a certain point, I was just like, "Yo, fuck this, man! I hate this. Like, I hate these. Like once they start introducing like the supernatural enemies,
the challenge room, flying wraiths or whatever. Like, oh, God,
yeah, like right. That's when I was like, all right, I don't know how I feel about trying to like grind this and actually.
Yeah, I limped to 20,000, and there's a trophy for 500,000. I was like, oh man,
oh my god!
And it's like it's not even like. It's not even obviously like it would have been if I did it at the time where I'm coming out of the story. I remember all the mechanics and how to really use all this shit. Instead, I'm Delson. I haven't fucking been. There sounds like a plane that's like right on top of my house.
Oh, I just heard that. Yeah.
It's like a space shuttle just stuck off.
I was like, that's really loud. I wonder if it's coming up on mic, but I guess it's passing over you now.
Weird.
Wait, you heard it? I heard it outside my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Wait, is the apocalypse happening? Yeah, I hear that also.
That's not normal, right?
That's
weird. I also hear it.
It's getting fainter now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they left here.
But like, what the fuck?
We all live in like a weird
pretty
diagonal.
far from each other.
Yeah, we're not close.
City, like, I guess I'm near Kevin.
We live in a zigzag.
Funny.
That's very funny.
Huh. That's interesting. Anyways. Did they launch a space shuttle? Somebody we got.
Yeah, we're not gonna fight
the
that.
Endeavor just gave us a flyby. No. So yeah, and it's like that thing of like, so I'm totally rusty to begin with, let alone to go in there and then be like, it's not even fetch who I run around and clean up the open world with. It was then I'm gonna go in and like, fuck. It's just like that thing of like, I wasn't in a great game mood yesterday where it's like I don't know if this ever happens with you guys. I set a goal, right? Of I was looking for my 10,000th trophy. I got it. I'll talk about that in a second. But after I did that, it was like, cool, now the world's my oyster. And I had all these things on there and I started jumping into them. And I jumped into First Light and fucked around for like, I don't know, half an hour or 45 minutes. And it was that thing of like, I'm in a bad mood already. Like I'm just tired and cranky and I don't know what I want to play. So I'm not enjoying this right now. And I don't know if I'll not enjoy it later. So I'll just put it down and come back to it later and see if I'm in the mood to do it. And then I was like, oh, fuck, Days Gone. I'm always talking about trying to clean up trophies on that and see the improvements on that. Started Days Gone, jumped into that, looked at the map. I was like, nah, I do not want to do this either. Jumped the fuck out of there. It was just, so it's like, I don't know with Infamous First Light for this thing. I saw kids have started to tweet their photos at me of like, I platinumed, I did it, I did the thing. And it's like, I need to look into, because I remember it also being annoying with like combos. Like you have to keep your combo up to keep the score up, to keep the thing up. And it's just like, fuck, I really want to go back and do this.
I think that might be part of it too, is that both me and you coming back into it fresh. I think there's something missing in terms of like, maybe there's a mechanic here that I'm not thinking of, that I'm not using correctly. Because I know like on the different back buttons, right? There's like, you have like your rocket move or like you have
like attack, like a machine gun. And then you have, or well, depending on which power you have, if you're Delson.
Yeah, and like jumping back into it, I was like, all right, I don't remember like the exact use cases for these different things. And then running around and remembering that like, oh yeah, like if I hit certain body parts, I can then trap enemies that way. And like then it was
the thing of like, so I started with the challenge rooms and I was like, oh, I still have stuff in the open world. I went back to the open world and it was exactly where I left this game, where I was like, yes, fuck, this is fun. Like I like traversing and running around a living world. Like I hate being in these cold, stupid VR rooms or whatever where the Augustine's just sending weird villains at me that I don't care about. You know what I mean? They're just sitting there shooting at me.
And I don't feel like there's like a good sense of like what's my health? Like, am I about to die? Like they do the thing that games do where you start to see your screen gray out and you lose color. Yeah, and like I feel like they could have communicated that way better. Like it should have been like a meter or something because I die and I'm like, really? That was the shot that killed me?
Yeah.
Some great games have terrible trophy lists. Like
Final
Fantasy VII, I platinumed that game, and there should definitely not be a trophy for getting all 9 dresses. That's just annoying as shit.
Like, I mean, dude, I want to platinum that game so bad, and like it hit a point that I was like, because another game I've been playing a lot is that, and I just hit a point. I'm like, I'm not platinuming this. I'm just gonna redo the stuff for fun. I'm gonna try to do some things I haven't done, play some chapters on hard just to like have that thrill again. But like, there's no way I'm platinuming this, and the dress thing is one of those factors for sure.
Yeah, it's that at that point, like if a platinum is either insane or busy work, I just kind of want to just check out immediately of, no, I don't want to do this. So, but also sometimes you don't know how annoying it's going to be until after you finish the game or start the process of it.
Yeah, but and then you're in the moment of it too, and you're doing it, and you're like, well, I've already come this far. Like I need to just commit and go through with it.
No, here's the thing. I've never called him out publicly for this, but Imran, like you have all the spirits in Smash Brothers, and like I have all the spirits, and I know more than anyone in the world how much a waste of time that is. And I've never been like, what the like, hold on, there's another human being I know that beat classic mode with every single character. What drove you to do that?
Imran Khan is in a long distance relationship.
Honestly, that's probably like, you have a lot of time in those kind of things. And it's, I remember doing it because like I just wanted to go through everyone's thing and like see the little picture at the end of like,
of course.
Because like there's some cool ones like Cloud holding Zelda in water, and it's like, oh, I get the joke that we're going for there. And two, it's a way to learn the characters. So for me, who gets bored playing one character at a time and likes to switch around, that's a good way to get used to everybody. But also, it's like, I don't know, that's the gameplay to me, is going through and just doing all that.
I love it. It's so funny because again, playing the Tony Hawk games, like back then, I would beat every Tony Hawk game with every character because that's what got you the hidden characters and the unlocks and all that stuff. And like, if the platinum for the new Tony Hawk game is tied to doing that, I don't know that I would do it, but it's funny that like with Smash Brothers, I absolutely did. And I don't want to say I hate myself for it.
They should have like a thing, like a tarnished platinum that's like, I don't have time for the rest of this shit. Just give me the easy trophies and I'll do that. Like, give me that separate list and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Save all the hard stuff for the DLC. That's what you do. Just let everybody go after it that way if that's what they want from it.
Bless, what you been playing?
I'm now 57 hours into Persona 5 Royal. I don't want to sound like a broken record because I've talked about this game on like the last 3 shows I've been on, but I'm enjoying it. It's an absolute blast. I'm starting to become Barrett in the sense that like it might become my game of the year by the time I finish it. Like I fucking love it. But yeah, I'm not gonna like belabor the point. I've been playing that. I got my Oculus Quest in the mail, so I've also started playing around with that too. It's been interesting. I know that just came out today, didn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so I might look into that. Even though I have it on PlayStation, so I can just also play it there. But yeah, man, I've been going through I've been going through the library, just seeing what's there and like what to mess around with. The 3 main things I messed around with so far in Oculus Quest have been one, Thumper, which is a game that like the reason I jumped into it is because I got it free. And so like I was just like, yo, I might as well just play Thumper because I've heard such good things about it. Really fun. It's like an on rails rhythm game where I guess it's akin to Amplitude, right? Where like it's on rails. You are basically reacting to like the beat and to like the I guess commands that's giving you. You're playing as like the small beetle on a rail, and then like you have to like hop on these I don't even know what to call them. Like
it reminds me honestly of the Ratchet and Clank rail bits.
Yeah.
Mixed with
a little bit of that.
But it's like with the in VR, it's so like ridiculously encompassing that you're just like, holy shit, this is so intense. It's kind of scary. Like I would even add that there's like a horror element to it.
Yeah, it's super like eerie and super like kind of in terms of like the environment that you're playing in, right? It's kind of weird where it is like you feel like you're in this other world that's kind of hellish a bit. And I played up to the first boss battle, which and it's kind of weird for this game to have a boss battle, but like which is like it is like this intense final moment where you're going through this on rails sequence and you are doing like the main mechanics I've learned so far in the game, because I assume they introduce more as you go, but you can do like a side grind where like that sounds weird to say out loud, but like where you like turn you like do like you do a side grind. It's like a grind turn essentially where you have to hold a button and then press whichever way you're turning, and then like you're pressing, let's say, X to the beat if this was like a PlayStation controller. And like it's like it was a very intense, very cool experience. Like I was very, very into it. Like the VR aspect of it is really interesting because like it's a game that I believe originally came out not in VR, like it was just a regular game release. And the thing that they kind of adapted for VR is that you're right down there with the beetle that you're controlling on the rail, and you're kind of getting that perspective, and it feels way more immersive.
I think it was the other way actually. But
was it really? Was it VR first?
I think it was. Could be played both ways.
Yeah, here we go. Wikipedia. Thumper is a rhythm game developed by Julian and released in October 2016 on Windows and PlayStation 4 with optional virtual reality support for Oculus, HTC Vive, and PlayStation VR.
That was the thing. Is I remember it as a PSVR game, and then it came to Switch later. Which is
I remember there being a Switch version, which I was thinking that it wasn't on VR first. But yeah, like it very much is like this cool, like immersive experience playing it that way. And so like if anybody's looking for like a rhythm game, I highly recommend that. And then I tried out Supernatural, which is the workout game that Greg's been talking about, where it is like it's like a monthly subscription, which is discounted right now. I got like an email, and I don't know if that's just like a me thing for my since I signed up recently. Or
you get a month free when you sign up, regardless if you're press or anything.
Yeah, but there's like I think it's like $13 a month if you get like the year subscription right now.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I just got an email about it, but that might just be like a deal for me. I don't know. But either way, like I've started the free trial on that. That was a really cool experience to try that out, because it is basically just Beat Saber, but one is 360, which I know Beat Saber has 360 if you're playing it on Quest. But then, what is this, Greg, that you're showing me?
That's me above you on the leaderboards. That's me above you on the leaderboards.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Here's my excuse. I don't have enough space to do this 360 thing, because I'm playing and I'm terrified that I'm gonna either punch my
backyard, don't you?
Or like hit my bed. I guess I do got a backyard.
You have no
strings
strings on you, Blessing.
Imagine like looking out the back window and seeing me in the backyard, just like flailing around like an idiot.
SF police.
You're gonna be on next door.
This man go crazy. Yeah, like
I live in an apartment complex and we have a shared backyard, and I won't lie to you, I did think about like, could I get away with going? But like the first floor apartments face out into it. I'm like, nobody needs to be like waking up, open their things, and Greg Miller's out there fucking doing squats.
Because he's shirtless. Like he'd be doing it. Helmet on, shirtless, outside. I want a video of that. Jen, get on it. Get on it.
I can easily give you a let's play.
I really do want to like move this bed though across this wall this way, so I just have more space, because I think if I do that, then I can get away with it. This bed is just heavy to move, and so that's why I tried to do it yesterday and I couldn't figure it out.
Hey man, you do a few more of these Supernatural VR sessions, maybe you'll be able to move.
Oh yeah, I'll get to go. But like it was a really cool experience, right? Like again, like this is basically just Beat Saber 360, but the aim is to get you like an actual workout, and so it's cool to see like the things that they kind of added to make it feel more dynamic in terms of the movements you're making, right? Like you're doing like what's this move right here where lunges, where you're like squatting but sideways,
you
like,
do squats, you do lunges, they have a whole bunch of stuff like that,
and you're like trying to stay within like these triangles that they throw at you, and the way they do is really, really good. I really like the coaches that they add with it. Like the ones that I've gotten so far have all been very encouraging, and it sounds like I'm talking about a real person that's coaching me, but like
I mean, if I can introduce that's the thing that I honestly keeps me coming back to it, because this is week 3 of me doing Supernatural VR, maybe 4, but I think it's 3 since release. And like I am, as I've said before, like I've struggled since quarantine to find what I want to do to work out, because I was enjoying going to the gym and doing Stairmaster, because I just felt like it gave me a place to zone out, look at my phone, read something, play a game. And so not having that, Jen's big on walks and yoga and stuff, and I do all that with her, but it's just not like what I want to do. It's not like I don't get the same satisfaction, enjoyment out of it. So getting into this and going through it, yes, it's Beat Saber 360. I think the squats and the triangles add more, but it's also the fact that like the dynamicness of it, where it's paying attention to what you're missing and if you're missing, and then giving you coaching tips along the way that both are about that, but then also about just where you are in the song, actually help in a way I wasn't expecting. As somebody who's like, I treat working out at the gym or working out period like masturbation. Like I'm ashamed of it. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want you to talk to me. Don't look at me while I do it. I'm doing this thing. So like, I don't want, in real life, I don't want a personal trainer there telling me, all right, 2 more, 5 more, come on, Greg, do the thing, blah, blah, blah. But something about it in Supernatural, with my own world, and it's the coach going through it and talking over it, works for me really well. Where it is that thing where, I usually do Leanne workouts, and she'll be like in the middle of it, right? Like, I'm guessing they'll read the progressive thing of like how I'm not hitting, and it'll be that thing of like, all right, cool, you only have this much longer, I need you to go 110% right now on power. Just give me power right now. And then the same thing of like, I really want you to open up your body on these attacks, which sounds silly, but I have noticed when she says that I'm not doing that, right? They are very big about, they want big movements, and they want like when, this is white and this is the white saber and this is the black saber. So when a white one comes over there, or vice versa, they want you crisscrossing your body and using your whole body, right? Opening up and doing big swings. And they'll come on and say that about opening up. And I will notice I'm like, oh, I haven't been doing like little wrist movements rather than actually doing it. And they are encouraging of like, my thing with it in the beginning, and my first impressions of it were very much like, I don't know, like I like it, but it is still a game. Like I was hoping this was going to be more of a workout and less of Beat Saber. Whereas Beat Saber, of course, you can put it in no fail, but you're still losing points or combos or whatever. And at the end of this, you still get the same thing of like how many you actually hit and what your accuracy was and what your power was. And when I start fucking them up and I start going the wrong direction of just worrying about that, having her chime in and be like, it's not about hitting them, it's about consistency. And like, it actually makes me feel when I am winded and I need to take a breath mid-song and just let the song keep going. And then she's like, all right, just get back on track. And you get back on track with it. It actually works for me in a weird way that I wouldn't think a coach would for me.
Yeah, like hearing them, like even like telling you to breathe in certain moments, right? Like I feel like having those commands in the background helps so much in a way where like I've done Beat Saber as a method to work out before, and I just find myself kind of being kind of aimless with it. Of like, I guess I'll play for the next hour until I get worn out. It's just me playing games on playing matches on expert, right? Which is great, but like there's not really any purpose to it in that way until I hope at some point they do add purpose to it, because I would love for a workout version of Beat Saber. And I know they released the Beat Fit song, I think that's what it's called, something like that. But like that's just one song. I hope they actually go about intentionally making a mode for that. Because like going in, whenever I play Beat Saber with that in mind, usually I just end up with like my biceps being sore, and then like maybe that's about it, right? Like I'm not squatting as much because I'm playing levels that don't have the bars. I mean, you have to duck under. And even then, I don't think when I duck under them, I'm and this is me personally in Beat Saber, I wouldn't say I'm doing a squat, right?
You're
like
gamifying it. You're like, how do I actually do the thing? Not just like, how do I hurt my body too?
Right. And so like in Supernatural, like I'm actually trying to do the right squat. Like I notice every time I go down, I extend my arms. And I think part of that again is that in the beginning when usually Leanne is like, all right, cool, we're doing this kind of thing, so let's get warmed up. Like, give me a squat, and she does it, and I mimic her position rather than like Beat Saber, where I'm just like, snaking around stuff.
That actually, like that's kind of how Ring Fit works, in that like it metaphorizes. I don't know if that's a word. It makes a metaphor out of the exercises to make them attacks. So I'm not thinking like, okay, I'm doing like a forward leg push thrust. It says like, okay, you're doing a kick forward to hit this enemy. Like, okay, that level of gamification makes it more interesting to me because it doesn't feel like work as much.
Yeah.
And aside from Supernatural, I've also been playing Echo Arena VR, the beta, which has the longest tutorial I think I've ever experienced in a video game. Like,
you played Kingdom Hearts 2.
I have played Kingdom Hearts. Well, I played the first 7 hours of Kingdom Hearts 2, and yes, half of that was a tutorial.
So you played the tutorial.
Yeah. But yeah, Echo, I've only played like maybe like an hour or so of Echo Arena VR, and like I think I might have just gotten out of the tutorial. But basically, it is like an arena game that is kind of analogous to Rocket League a bit, where you're in VR and like it's like this futuristic arena kind of thing, and you're able to you have like rockets on, you're able to like thrust forward and like thrust backwards and like fly around in this like low gravity arena kind of thing. It's basically, though, like when it comes down to it, the actual game is like this version of like, I don't know if this is a real thing, but like disc soccer or something like that, right? Or like ultimate frisbee, where you are basically trying to get a frisbee and then throw it through a goal, and it's zero gravity, and so like you have a team of people, or you have two teams that are like, you know, trying to compete to either block the disc or get the disc and then throw it into the goal. Through all the tutorial stuff I did with it, seemed pretty cool. Like I can't actually wait to play a match. But yeah, like so far, like my experience with the Oculus Quest as a whole has been pretty cool. Like it's a pretty cool piece of hardware that I was mentioning this on PS Love You, because I brought this up in comparison to PSVR, right? Like it's having no wires, no cables to kind of be in your way is such a big difference maker. Like it's kind of changed the way I look at it, especially like being able to come to it and not have to set anything up, not having to like bust out a box or unplug a USB and replug a USB and like bust out my Move controllers that are buried at the bottom of my bag over there. Like, you know, being able to just put it on and be ready to go is such a big difference of experience that I've had than I've had from other VR that you know I'm super digging it. I'm super into it. And yeah.
Dude,
that was my thing, right?
I feel like Quest is the most underrated thing to come out in the last 3 years. It's just so it just fucking works. And it's like VR we've been talking about now for I feel the past 6-7 years. And it's like Quest is the thing, like, oh, they did it. Like this is it. This is the thing people should do. And like killer app aside, all that stuff. It's like, no. You just get this and it's the thing you need. And the interface is easy enough to understand, where even the tutorials of learning the interface is fun. And then getting into the store, all of it makes sense. I'm having a great time with my Quest as well.
Yeah, and it was this stark, comparison after doing so much Quest with Supernatural for the past few weeks to then, like I was mentioning earlier, I was looking for my 10,000th trophy and trying to make it into something that would be important or whatever, right? And finally noticed that it lined up that I only needed 14 more trophies in Island Time VR, which is the game where I play the crab. And I was like, that's what more Greg Miller 10,000th trophy is there than the platinum in the game.
I love it.
The voice actor for. And so after playing so much Quest, having to bust out my PlayStation VR, which I of course still love, but all right, I have the Pro, but I don't have the PSVR version 2. So I don't want to have it plugged in constantly to the box and just leave it there. So it's like digging out the box, plugging into the PS4, cables out, move the table, get down, sit down. I start playing the game, and I'm moving around on the island, and I would start to drift and have to recenter, and then I'd get the cord and the headphone cords like caught on my leg and like yank out for more power, and then tuck it into my waistband and like get back to the game. It was just like fuck, like and then it's the opposite in the morning with Quest, where I get up and personally, because I have a small place too, push the kitchen table to the side, put it on. And it's like, okay, here's the boundaries play, and you're right back into it. Whereas like here it was the whole production and putting it down and then pushing it all over, and then it's like, well, I think I'm going to play Predator tomorrow night first, so disconnect it, reconnect it the right way, so I'm just getting a straight feed to the TV or whatever.
That boundary thing is really cool too. Like
it's amazing.
I mentioned that. Like, yeah, no, that's the thing too. I mentioned at the beginning, right? Like I don't have much space for Supernatural, and so like it's that's kind of a difficult thing to manage. But being able to set that boundary, right, and it being like super simple and super cool. So like, oh yeah, like this is the space that I have. So that whenever I reach too far, the game notifies me that like, yeah, you're hitting a wall right now. Like, super cool, super useful thing that is actually letting me play Supernatural to the extent that I can in my room.
So guys, I want to get into the topic of the show. That is originally the original kind of one sentence pitch was, what's the value of a $60 game? Now the broader topic is, what should games cost? But who wants to start here? Give an idea here of what is the value of a $60 game.
$60.
Yeah, I'm gonna say $59.99, right? Plus tax. I mean, it's a weird question. I mean, interested to hear the conversations that come out of it, let alone your, I know your question, but like your impetus behind it, right? Because I think it's more, you started before that of, what is the value of a $60 game, but like what should games cost? I think games should cost what they need to cost. You know what I mean? And I know that's it sounds stupid and philosophical or whatever, but it's like games this is a business. And I wish, that games were free and everything was available to go get right away. And, we could all have free stuff. But I think there is this thing of, there's a strata. I think, as digital distribution takes over, we're starting to see more and more people play around with what games can cost and what that means. I think for a while when you were $9.99 or below or $14.99 and below, you were considered to be a budget game, right? There's still the stigma of, the new Ratchet & Clank's coming out. It's only $39.99. Oh, well, it's not a full Ratchet & Clank game then. And then we got it and it was a full Ratchet & Clank game. Like we're breaking down those walls, but I still think games should be moving to a part where they're taking care of, obviously, publishers who are, paying to get the game made, but the developers who are making the game, right? And like trying to pay that forward and reward everybody for that and make it so this is profitable for everyone and makes sense for everybody. Because the amount of enjoyment I get out of a game, I hate to think that someone somewhere in that line, which is inevitable, is getting screwed over.
So let me present this then in a different way of, I agree with you completely, but let's look at
fuck you.
No, I'm talking about, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater a lot. Like Tony Hawk 1 and 2 now are coming out at $40 for this package. When Tony Hawk HD came out last gen, and granted, it wasn't a great game, it wasn't $40. It was a digital download, cheaper. I think it was between 15 and 20 when it came out. And then we look at the Nintendo side of things, and it's like, cool, Nintendo has released Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Wii U for $50 when it first launched. And then when it came out on the Switch, it was $60 years later. And they added Funky Mode, but like realistically, no one is paying extra for that.
Yeah.
Right. So where does that kind of come into play when you bring up the Ratchet and Clank game, where it's like, cool, this is a $40 game that is AAA, all things considered. And granted, it is also a remake. So it's like this, there is like a lot of weird factors that come into this of like, well, Final Fantasy VII is also a remake. You know what I
mean? Yeah.
With as many changes as Ratchet and Clank had from the original game.
And so was Shadow of the Colossus, and that was, I believe, $40 as well, the PS4 version.
And that's an interesting thing, because I feel like mentally, as we're talking about all these things, right, I kind of make the jumps of, all right, well, Final Fantasy VII Remake is like this 30-hour RPG, 30 to 40-hour RPG, and it's even though it's a remake, it's still a totally brand new thing. And that then turns into the conversation of, well, it's just part one of the first game. And I know that turns into like this huge rabbit hole, right? But then when we talk about Ratchet and Clank, I'm then like, all right, well, yeah, that is a remake, but I also would have bought that game for $60, and it does feel brand new in a lot of ways, but at the same time, like the game is only like 10 hours long and all these things. And then we jump into Shadow Colossus, and my brain is like, well, that game is basically the same game as the original Shadow Colossus, except the assets are just redone. And like all of that stuff, when it comes down to it, is very arbitrary. Like I think this conversation is interesting because, like, for me, when you first asked the question, my mind immediately jumped to like the other side of it of like, dude, if they charged $100 for Last of Us Part 2 or like $100 for Cyberpunk, I'd probably pay that, right? Like people will throw a fit, but I think people would still pay that price for those games. Not trying to give anybody any ideas. And yeah, when you rewind and come back to the question of like, what's the value of a $60 game? Like, I feel like at a certain point, if it's kind of an arbitrary number that we've all kind of agreed to, right? Like it's a weird number that we've kind of all just kind of held hands on and been like, all right, this is what you can get. This is the most you can charge for a video game that you feel like you can get away with this for, which is an interesting thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because like talking about this now, like I remember we're bringing up Ratchet and Clank. Like before that came out, there was a lot of discussion around that because that was kind of an interesting breakthrough. Not that it was the first one to ever do it, but in my mind, that was the first game that kind of chose that price point that was a bigger title, because normally it'd be things, if they were $40, it was like, oh, it's a lesser than, like, we understand what this is, but really $40 was like a not common kind of price point. We'd hit down to the 20, the 15, the 10s for smaller games, and it was 60 for the bigger ones. In the old generations, there were games that were over traditional MSRP for things where we were, N64 days hitting up to the $60, $70, $80 games for traditionally N64, if I remember correctly, were like $40.
Cart prices and like Genesis stuff. Whenever they had to add a new microchip, it tended to raise the price quite a bit.
Yeah. But now that we've kind of like settled out a bit where it's like, okay, cool, a PS4 game or an Xbox One game costs $60. That $40 price point was the weird, interesting middle ground that made Ratchet such a standout. And I feel like that started something that we don't talk about often, but now that we're years ahead of it, we look back and it's like, cool, the Crash Bandicoot trilogy that came out, that was also 40. And a lot of these remake trilogies or whatever they are come out at that $40 price point and do very well. And people aren't complaining that they are hitting that price point. But what we haven't seen is that other end of the conversation that I feel when we were first having the Ratchet talk of, oh, Ratchet's 40. I'd pay $100 for Witcher 3. That's not happening. We're not seeing the over $60 games.
$60 is the current threshold because that's what they think those games can sell at. I have no doubt that The Last of Us costs more than like an ASP of $60 would bear out necessarily. But they're not going to post it above that because they don't think they can sell it. In the remake discussion of like Ratchet and all that jazz, Xenoblade comes out next month, which probably had less work done to it than Ratchet and Clank or Shadow of the Colossus. But it's going to be a $60 game because that's what Nintendo thinks they can sell it at. They don't think they're going to move significantly more copies at lower $40 price point, so they're not going to do that. The market kind of dictates where they go for it, and the market has that current cap at $60.
So the weird thing there, though, with Nintendo specifically, is growing up as I would say more so a 2000s gamer than even a 90s gamer, because that's when I was a teenager and able to buy games and make my own choices with stuff. Nintendo was always cheaper. It was always like, oh, we're getting the handheld games for $30. We're getting the Nintendo games for $50. And then when Xbox and PlayStation made the move to $60, there was still a while where Nintendo was at that $50 level. And I feel like there was then a shift, especially now that we're at the Switch, which is more expensive than Wii U games were, even if they are the exact same game being ported. And it's not just Donkey Kong that I'm using an example of, but it is like Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee, right? Like a remake of a game that was a Game Boy game in 1998 that they're selling for $60, and it's like that's kind of the weird thing where I feel like Nintendo, it's whatever the market can handle, and they're handling it, right? Like people are buying these games, and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze sold more on Switch than it sold on Wii U. So it's like that they're seeing the proofs in the pudding there for, of course, why would we not do that and not put it out this rate because we're selling it that way. But I feel like Nintendo in a lot of ways are making decisions and doing things that are backwards compared to what we're seeing Microsoft and Sony do.
Every first party has had that thing where like they try to hold a line of a cheaper thing and then eventually start doing the more like when Sony first started out, PlayStation first party games were I think $40. And then when the 360 came around, they said, okay, every third party can price their games whatever they want. They can be $60. Xbox Game Studios will only do $50. And then that lasted for like a year, I think. Like I think Gears of War, they're like, oh no, that's Epic, so that's not like quite count, even though we're publishing it. So they went to 60 after that, and just no one really cared or noticed. Like Nintendo eventually did the same thing of like they did the $60 price point, and now they're never going to go back. They'll never go lower. Like maybe for certain games, but by and large, a retail release is expected to be $60.
And doesn't this all come down to arithmetic at some point? Like I feel like I've seen the conversation get so hung up on, well, it's a remake of an old game that blah blah. Like that still doesn't mean there's not a team working on it that making assets that are doing the thing. And granted, I'm playing fast and loose with remakes, so it's different for many of them, but it is coming up with new quests doing whatever. It is planning out the old quests and modernizing them, stuff like that. Even I think Donkey Kong, right? Tropical Freeze is the one we're talking about, right? From Wii U getting ported over and costing more, having a little bit more. There still is, first off, a team that's porting it over and making it work and adding the new content. But beyond that, I'm sure Nintendo didn't make their money back on the first one. So there is this thing of like, even though it seems like they're just repackaging the same thing and it wouldn't cost that much, if you're already in the negative on one game, you're trying to make up that difference. And
That's the hidden thing no one really talks about, is that $60 is actually probably too low. That's why we're currently like, this kind of came from the 360 era, but it's a much bigger issue now, that every game has to be a big hit because they need to sell on volume. And $60 is honestly, for the development costs we're at, is too low for to recoup cost necessarily, much less make a profit. I expect, like, most people don't want to talk about that because $60 is still a lot for a personal consumer to spend, especially when games come out with the volume that they do. But honestly, like, again, we bring up The Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2 as examples. Those games are going to sell 15 million copies, so they're fine being $60. If you're going to sell like 100,000 copies, being $60, and if you have like a really expensive development, is actually probably pretty low. It's probably going to result in a negative revenue or return on investment.
And this goes back a bit, I think, to, if you remember, Tim, 2015, when we had Peter Moore on the stage at E3 talking about EA. And it was right after they announced Unraveled, right? And he was very much like, listen, we're not going to make money on Unraveled. We're putting on Unraveled because we believe in it and we want to support developers of that size and of that caliber. We know FIFA and Madden are going to make the money, right? For a first party, right, or a company that wide, you're dealing with the same things. And it's why, like, Sony's financials they just released, right? We're talking about, well, there was no God of War or Spider-Man. That's why we're down year on year. Like, I think that is the same argument of, you have, like Imran's talking about, Last of Us is going to come out, sell a gajillion copies and make a lot of money and make way more, or hopefully make way more than it costs to do whatever. But that's not just now a profit on the board. That means that's going to be profit for PlayStation. It does mean when they put out Medieval and that doesn't come anywhere near making back the amount of money, that negative then gets, added to the positive of Last of Us, and we start bringing down those numbers. And those are the margins you're working with, of trying to be in the black. So you have these big hits like Imran's talking about that let you have chances, but you're playing with the scale and like, how much did that development cost, and then equate that game should cost that much.
It's funny you bring that up because, like, that's true. And I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit just to kind of make this an interesting conversation. But it's like, did Medieval need to happen? Because I would argue Medieval Remake was a total response to the success that everyone saw with Crash coming back and a lot of these retro games coming back and selling gangbusters, right? And it feels like, okay, cool, saying that, that Last of Us or whatever need to happen in order for Medieval to happen. It's kind of like, well, that shouldn't be the case. In some ways, it's go with the easy answer to make the money to fund the bigger and better things. Like with Tropical Freeze, I think is the most interesting example in the last 5 years. And I guess at this point, it might be more than 5 years that comes into all of this in terms of the price of a game, because it is a 2D platformer. It's made by the guys that everyone wanted to make Metroid Prime, but they made a sequel to Donkey Kong Country. And it's a 2D platformer that is undeniably one of the best 2D platformers of all time. Critics love it. Everyone that's played it loves this game. But then it came out at $50, and it is a top-selling Wii U game. Like, I'm looking up now, it's at 2 million units sold, which for
the Wii U is good.
Console that only sold
it sold like 12 million total.
Like, so I think last I saw it was like 13, but it's like, dude, look at the attachment rate on that. Like, that's a success, right? So it's like, looking at that, for them to then take that game and sell it for more money on the next console, and it worked for them. It totally worked for them. They made the money back, and honestly, this is a game that should be played by more people than they've even played it now. But it's just interesting to look at how it all works, because we're talking about what's the value of a remake or whatever, but it's, I don't know.
I think
is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze worth $60?
I mean, yes. I think for on the Nintendo side of things too, like, I think the conversation gets interesting because for them, a lot of it comes down to them preserving their IPs and preserving the value of what they own. Like, I imagine that, like, a lot of their games can come down in price as time goes on, but as we see, like, years pass after a game is released and you check and those games are still $60, those games are still full price. And what that comes down to is that Nintendo doesn't want to devalue what they have, because they know for a fact if we can keep in the minds of the people the fact that Mario stays $60 and the fact that Donkey Kong and Nintendo games stay at that high price, one, like, you don't have people that are like, I'm going to wait to get this on sale. But then also, like, I think you kind of build that like esteem, like you kind of build that value within your IPs for people to go like, oh yeah, this is the best of the best. Like, these games don't go on sale because people will buy these regardless. People are clamoring for these, and yeah, this is the best of what this console has to offer. And so yeah, when it comes to Nintendo, I feel like that conversation gets very interesting in a way where, like, going back to like the medieval thing, right? In certain games kind of justifying the existence of other games. I think like medieval is a very interesting example because like I don't necessarily see the strategy behind that being similar to the strategy behind Crash Bandicoot. Like at least as far as like, you know, seeing the success of Insane Trilogy and trying to replicate it, right? I think for on the medieval side, it is more so like, hey, what if we can just throw shit at a wall and see if this works, right? Like, what if like, and not calling medieval shit, but like, what if we put out a remake of medieval and see if this sticks with people, right? Like, there's going to be a small audience that's there, but what if like we're able to get a new audience with it at the same time, and what if this is able to spawn a thing? I think at that point
they did not think that at all. No way.
I feel like at a certain point though, like it is kind of research and development. Like it is like, hey, we have Last of Us, we have console sales, right? We have all these things that are justifying the bottom line, that are getting us money, and then with that we can do weird projects, right? Like we can do Concrete Genie, we can fund I don't know, man, we can fund Blood and Truth, which I guess is more so meant to sell VR as a thing.
Those make sense though.
I mean, Concrete Genie, I feel like it's more of a unique thing where it's like y'all didn't have to do that. Like it's really cool that you did, and like I know people love Concrete Genie, but I feel like when you look at the books and you look at Concrete Genie and medieval, and I guess we might disagree on the purpose of medieval, but I feel like these are obscure projects that are like one, like meant to just enhance the portfolio a bit, right? Like add that diversity, but at the same time, like see if it sticks, see if this gets an audience because it's new and different. And
well, they both
medieval
kind of what PlayStation's trying to do in different ways, right? Like we talk about all the time. Tim's wearing it. Like PlayStation is trying in the same way Nintendo has. PlayStation is always trying, as of late, to remind us that, hey, we've been around forever. We've been around a long time. You have nostalgia for us. There is a love for PlayStation, whether you know it or not. And so if we're gonna do a throwback jacket, a special edition, bring back a game like Medieval that, again, I was never a fan of, but remember distinctly playing at a demo station, being one of the first PlayStation things I ever really fucked around with. That, like, I want to say like a Sears or a Service. What's the department store that was something with Service?
I think you might be thinking of Sears, because Sears, I believe, had video games.
It was like Inside Service or something like that. Service and something. It doesn't matter. God, that's gonna drive me crazy. I'll check the YouTube chat if you're watching. Anyways, but it's like that thing of like that is a touchstone, and so it's back to, all right, let's go and work with this developer, partner with them. They say they can make this game cheap, in quotes. We'll sell Medieval for $30. It'll, hopefully turn heads as a game people remember. Since the Crash Bandicoot stuff happened, and we've seen this influx in nostalgia of that. People have, not a lot, but people have been saying Medieval, so it is a way to pay it forward and be like, look, we do have a stable of games and history and everything else there. Concrete Genie, on the other hand, is, hey, we are still the PlayStation people remember from the PS3, and maybe that you fell in love with then, or into the early days of the PS4, that does weird shit. Like, this is a weird art piece. And as we continue to push this, now PlayStation Studios thing, right? Of like, this is what we do. We make games that are stories, that are single player, that touch you. Like, we're going to still do that. Like, in the same way you look at Concrete Genie, and I guess this isn't apples to apples because obviously they're different caliber of games, even though I adore Concrete Genie. You look at Concrete Genie and say, well, it doesn't need to exist. You can say the same thing about Journey. Journey doesn't need to exist, but it did, and it touched a lot of people and became a defining PSN game and a defining PlayStation character.
Well, there's like lots of reasons games get made, right? Like Pixel Opus probably made Concrete Genie because Sony is trying to make them into a bigger studio. They moved on to the actual the Redwood City site. They're the only development studio there. I imagine Concrete Genie is, they're hiring up, let's train these people on a project and let's make some money off the thing they're training on. That's basically the reason Xenoblade exists, is that Monolith Soft has made a bunch of new hires. Might as well get them working on something, so when they actually do work on an original game, they have an experience doing stuff. Going back to like the thing Tim was talking about with like certain games having to be priced lower to justify the kind of game they are, like Donkey Kong was. Yoko Taro has this quote once about how you could make the best game ever that lasts 5 minutes long, but you can't sell it for $60 if it's 5 minutes long. It could be the best 5 minutes of all time, but it can't be sold for $60. And I think that's a problem a lot of games run into. Like, Sonic Generations is a very good example, and I think Bless, you know what I'm talking about. That game, the actual levels are amazing. However, there's like between every level, you have to do some real bullshit to get through to the next level of what you want to play, and that's because the game is not
white stuff.
it's not a long game. So, but they have to justify it somehow, and they've been doing that since Unleashed because like you have to do so many art assets for those games that you just blow right past and never really see. But you have to make the games feel longer, otherwise you can't sell them for $60. If you can't sell them for $60, then what's the point? Like Star Fox is another game that has that same problem of, well, the genre people want this game in can't be sold for 60, and if we can't do it for 60, then there's no point in actually making it.
I'd rather them not make it then, but that's just me.
Hey man, if they make 5 Sonic games and one of them is all right, I'm down for it.
Good, because that's maybe the ratio.
But it's back to, what we're talking about then of this argument of what's a game worth. And then not only is it what it's worth, what is it worth on that platform? What is it worth through the lens of that platform, right? And I go back to Round Guard, right? That Peggle clone that is an RPG and does, or not RPG, roguelike that Tim and I played a lot and enjoy. And I think I liked more than he did. I played it initially on PlayStation, or I actually downloaded it on my Apple Arcade. Then when it came to PlayStation, played it on PS I Love You, right? But you're talking about Apple Arcade, a subscription buffet, right? For what, it's $5 a month, $6 a month? I forget which one.
$5.
It's $5, yeah.
$5 now. $5 a month versus $20 straight up on PlayStation, on Switch even right now. You know what I mean? Like, what is the arithmetic math there? How does that work? Is it that, as a developer, as a publisher, you must be looking at it being like, well, what can we do on what platforms, and how does that make sense, and where was it built for, and how do you bring it over? Florence, another great, fantastic game that I adore on mobile, right? A 45-minute experience that I forget how much was, and then
I want to say it was $3. I think
is that what it was?
Well,
do you know?
And it's super worth it. At least when I first bought it. I don't know what it is nowadays, but yeah, no. Bringing in mobile to this, like, I really think changes the game in terms of how fucked and warped the prices are. And I feel like Apple Arcades came in to kind of help that in many ways. I've went back to Round Guard a lot, actually, just to kind of check in and, keep playing because I have the service. And there is that value just that's inherent there. Of once you have it, you're like, oh, you know what? I did enjoy this enough to come back to it. And like, Peggle Blast, one of my favorite games of all time, despite its bullshit ass microtransactions and mobile garbage. They took every Peggle game off of the App Store, so that's all I have to go back to. And slowly but surely, I'm trying to 3-star every single level in it. I would have gladly paid a lot more money than would have been traditionally okay for that type of game to have it forever. Like, I would pay $50 to have Peggle Blast just be open to me to never see an ad again. But they don't give me that option, and like that's where Apple Arcade kind of came in to fix those problems. But Apple Arcade is never going to be a mainstream thing. Like, that's just a reality of all this. And I feel like until we start seeing that on the console side of stuff, like, I think Game Pass is a great example of where it could go. But we're a couple steps away from that being a, justification for the dollar signs. And I think that Halo Infinite could be a huge kick down of the door, or it could be a perfect warning of, guys, this is what this is always going to be now. And Gears 5, so like looking at Xbox the last couple games, right? We have Ori, we have Gears 5, we have the Forza games, we have Bleeding Edge. It's like there's like varying quality there. And I think in many ways it's like, oh shit, they're making real good games. I think Ori's a great example of like, that's a fucking good game. But it's how many more of those are we going to get?
Crackdown is a very good example of the kind of game made for Game Pass. Of that game probably not worth $60, honestly. Like, I'm sure that game is a decent amount of fun, but if you had to decide between, let's say, Crackdown came out last year, right?
No,
yes?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so. Now that
if you had to decide between like that game and, let's say, Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, something like that, they're both $60. And you're probably going to pick one of the bigger AAA games. So for a Game Pass, that kind of game makes sense because it doesn't feel like $60, even though if you played it for 3 months, you were essentially paying $60 with Crackdown 3.
Interesting. That's a valid point where it's like it adds up over time. Like, these are there is money attached to Game Pass. It's not free. But even then, it's like, it's unfortunate to think that, oh yeah, Crackdown's a Game Pass game. Like, I hope we don't hit that point where that's like, I hope Halo Infinite raises that bar, because Gears 5 to me raised that bar. Gears 5 also just didn't hit on the level that it made mainstream success, where people associate it with like, dude, no, you need to get Game Pass for this. Like, it's worth getting it just for this thing.
So let's have a thought experiment for a moment. Okay. Days Gone sold really, really well. Do you think that if there were a PlayStation equivalent to Game Pass and Days Gone launched on it, the downloads would outpace the people who buy it? Because that to me feels like the kind of game that a Game Pass style thing is meant for.
So the question is, if there was a PlayStation Game Pass,
yes.
Days Gone was on it, would more people have played Days Gone than did buying it?
Yes.
Yes, I do. 100%.
Yeah.
Especially with the PlayStation Plus numbers they just released, right? Well, I guess I'm sorry. I'm saying in my world, PlayStation Plus just became PlayStation Game Pass.
Yeah, but yeah, PS Now though, like it's still like a super popular thing, which is like a similar kind of, which is more of a comparable thing.
Sure.
And yeah, like if you take the numbers there and apply that to some sort of PlayStation Game Pass, then yeah, I think you would definitely see Days Gone get more players.
But I think that like that's kind of why Sony doesn't like that model, is because if you did do that, you did expect a game like Days Gone to be on Game Pass and not a $60 game that's sold on its own, that it wouldn't have done those good numbers. They have a very consistent. Their current model is just the complete opposite of Microsoft. They want to sell those $60 games. Microsoft is currently going in a different direction. I kind of wonder if this is going to reflect the Halo's design as well. Of like, this is a little different. This is not meant to be a thing you buy once and that's it. It is meant to keep you hooked on, and not meant to. We're not going to break the bank on every individual game. We're going to break the bank spreading across. So it is interesting to watch those two dynamics at work now.
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna say, like, the Game Pass game thing is interesting because when I think of Game Pass, right, I think of Microsoft first party games, but then I also think of Streets of Rage 4, and then also Outer Wilds and Void Bastards, which I just played, and I don't love Void Bastards, but I know a lot of people out there do. When we're talking about like the value of Game Pass and like the value of like the service and what Microsoft wants from it, I feel like third-party games are almost doing third-party in like really unique, really cool indies are doing almost as much for it as like the first-party Xbox games, right? Like, I don't know if I'm at the place yet where I look at Crackdown and I'm trying to think of like another like kind of flop on the Xbox side, but like when I look at Crackdown, I don't necessarily think
Bleeding
Game Pass
Edge
game.
Right?
Or Bleeding Edge, right? I guess Bleeding Edge would probably be actually a more clear example, right? Because like Crackdown, I just look at it as like, oh yeah, this game came out and it kind of flopped. Bleeding Edge, I do look at as a game that I kind of associate more with the service, but at the same time, I also do look at it as a game that kind of came out and kind of just didn't have the impact. Like, that doesn't necessarily affect how I look at Game Pass and the value of games associated with it, because like you still have the big Xbox first party games, and you still have like Halo Infinite coming out for it soon, and then you also still have your experiences like Streets of Rage 4, which I do look at more so as like the Game Pass games.
I asked you guys on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames to write in and give your thoughts on what a $60 game is worth. Anakin JMT writes in and says, to me, a $60 game is something I really want to play, and it's not something I will forget about in a day or two. I'll never forget picking up my midnight copy of the Medal of Honor 2010 reboot, thinking I would play it for a couple hours before going to bed, only to have the game done by 4:30. Multiplayer wasn't great, so essentially I was done with the game and forgot about it the next day. Nowadays, a game needs to mean more to me to justify the $60 price tag. This is why Resident Evil 3 will be a purchase when it goes on sale, but Last of Us Part 2 will be day one. Last of Us, even if I finish it in a day, will last far longer in my mind than RE3.
And that's a great way of putting it, is like not how long it takes you to play it, how much mind share it takes, right? Because even when we were just talking about Florence, thinking back on Florence, immediately like that fucking soundtrack is in my head and I'm thinking back through it. And I was looking at, it's $5 or whatever on Switch, or $5.99 on Switch and $5.99 on Steam. There's a discount right now on Switch, but then $2.99 on iOS, right? And granted, we're talking about a difference of $2 there or whatever, but like that is a game that, yes, I paid, for on iPhone, so I paid $3, I guess, for it. But if I had paid $10 for that, $15 for that, and still only gotten 45 minutes out of it, I wouldn't be complaining. Like I still think so fondly of that game that I bought the vinyl and don't even listen to vinyls that much. You know what I mean? Like that's a great way of putting it, of how much you think about it. The same thing with like Gone Home, right? A game that is 2 hours long, an hour and a half, I forget now. And I talked about for years now of how much that game touched me.
It's interesting because him bringing up RE3, and I know in our review, we all kind of talked about this in different ways and had different opinions on it. But I kind of feel like I would be down to pay $60 for RE3 for what it was, because I enjoy the type of game it is and the level of production that they put into it, and how like tight of an experience, and more so like the presentation of it all. It's like there's money there where I'm like, I would be down to pay $60 for RE3 remake more than I'd be down to pay $60 for Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze with funky mode. It's like this was such a different style, and one's a port, one's a remake, but what remake, remaster, like all this stuff, it's like we start adding all these different terms for similar things. And I just feel like there is a level of, it is not just they took RE3 and put it on a new console. Should the game have had more, and is it worth $60 compared to other $60 games? No, definitely not. And that's kind of where this gets really interesting, is there's not a higher price point. It's like I kind of look at RE3 and I'm like, yeah, that would be worth 60 if Last of Us is worth 100.
It's so weird because like, RE3, right? I didn't think about that until just now, is like a $60 game. And I was just looking this up a moment ago, right? One of my favorite games ever is The Witness, which came out for $40, and I played that game for probably like 20 something hours. And I know there's people out there that probably played it for up to 40 hours because that game kind of keeps going and going. And if we're talking about mindshare, like The Witness takes up way more mindshare for me. If we're talking about like, the amount of enjoyment I got out of the game, The Witness, the amount of time, The Witness, right? But The Witness is still a $40 game. And what that kind of comes down to is probably like just how much money was spent on it. Like The Witness is a beautiful game, but like it's still like an indie. It's still what you would refer to as like an independent game. Especially compared to Resident Evil 3, which is like as much as I have issues with Resident Evil 3, like the production value is there in terms of like the assets and the set pieces and all these things. I don't know, it's just it's like a weird thing for me to grapple with. We're talking about value in that sort of way.
It's a weird thing when you see where the $60 goes, but then that's where it comes down to, is it worth it? But I feel like that only comes into play in comparison to other things.
I would rather spend the $60 on The Witness though, which is my thing. Like I feel like I'd much rather budget, and I know this isn't how it works, and so it's almost like a stupid thing to say, but I'd rather budget be allocated to making a better game than making a prettier game.
Do you remember when,
it's not
like,
necessarily about pretty? It's about like supporting that single player, like narrative focused game, and those are going to cost more.
There's also Hellblade though, which is like a similar thing. Like Hellblade, I'd say in length is probably similar to RE3. And again, like that game takes up more mindshare. That game, I would say, is a better designed thing. That game has a more meaningful story. But that game came out for like, I want to say like $30 or something like that, which I think you could still make those like meaningful like narrative single player games for a cheaper price. But I don't know, man, the way that like I feel like with a lot of $60 like mainstream games, you get that price kind of like, or you get that budget kind of watered down in certain ways. And like RE3 would be my main example of that, of like, yeah, this game kind of exists just to exist for me. Like I know RE3, people love RE3 as a game, and there are fans of that, and that game definitely exists as something special for them. But outside of that, like I feel like that game, when we're talking about price, definitely kind of doesn't live up to that.
It's funny because I feel like what you just said kind of really encapsulates everything we just talked about in the last hour, where it's like it's what you can you get away with, because I feel like Hellblade couldn't get away with $60, but at $30 it was a success, and people look at it as like, oh my god, look what they did. Whereas like Capcom and Nintendo can get away with kind of pricing things at a higher point, and they'll still work. There's still success. People are going to play the Nintendo game. They're going to play the Resident Evil game. So it's like, it is weird that the value there kind of, I feel like coming out at a cheaper price point can actually enhance the value of the game. in a way that even if you're putting out higher to justify the cost of it being so much higher production value.
Yeah,
do you remember when XBLA games were like, there was a big controversy of them being more expensive than $15? Like there was a big thing when Castle Crashers was about to come out. They're like, oh my god, it might be 20. That's insane. It's like, no, now if a game is like less than $20, I'm like, why?
Yeah, like I'm playing Hunt Down right now. Like I'm playing Hunt Down right now on PlayStation, which is like this 2D Contra game. And it was like $20. And like I looked at that and I was like, yeah, I can see that. Like,
yeah,
that makes sense. If it's a good game, yeah, like $20 sounds good.
This has been the Kind of Funny Gamescast. We're about to get into the Patreon exclusive post show where we're going to read many more of your responses on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and letting you know our thoughts on those. Thank you for joining us this week. We will be back soon. Until then, love you.